Hi, this is Brian Ierson. I'm one of the instructors with the Computer Workshop. In today's tutorial, we're going to go over how to use the Adobe CC Libraries. Now, for this example, I'm going to work primarily in InDesign, but we will see how these libraries are integrated within the entire Adobe suite so that you can share content and resources across multiple platforms. To begin, you can see that I have a single page document up. This has many logos, color swatches, variations of the logo. It also has text captions or text boxes that are address blocks. These are all elements that I use commonly from one document to the next, as well as from one application to another. So instead of having to always go to a network drive to locate these, I'm going to create a specific CC library in order to house and access all of this content. We're going to go ahead and locate the library panel, and this will look like a little page with a bookmark. If you do not have the library panel already open, you can always access it by going to Window in the main menu, and from this drop-down, locate your CC libraries. Clicking this will open your library panel. Now, I've made my library panel wide so that you can see things as easily as possible. Now, to begin, you probably will not have any libraries other than your default. So you're going to want to start by creating a library. And here I want to just give you some ideas to consider. Each client should have its own library that stores all of the relevant and pertinent content associated with that client. So if you are working in a design firm and you are dealing with several clients, you would want to have all the clients' logos, colors, styles, important repeated pieces of information stored in that specific client's library. That way you maintain very strict control and ease of access to all the required resources. Now I'm going to start by just clicking Create New Library, and I'm going to be prompted here to name my library. So I'm just going to call this New Resources for the time being. You can save this into a common location where all of your colleagues can access it, or you can save this in your personal storage. For now, here again, I'm going to save this in my personal storage, and later I will show you how you can share this with your colleagues. Once you have determined where you're going to save it and given it its name, we can go ahead and tap the Create button. Your new library is ready to accept content. You can see here it tells you to start building a library. You can basically just drag and drop that content. Now, as I have my page here with all of these pieces, I've got logos, I've got colors, I've got variations of my logo, I've got my address blocks for print and for web display. So I'm going to go ahead and begin by creating folders within my library to keep things as organized as possible. Now I'm going to come down to the bottom of my CC library panel and locate the new group icon, which looks like a small folder. Giving this a tap, I will be prompted to name my new folder or group, and I'm going to begin with logos. I'm going to click on the logo that I have in my document, and I am simply going to drag that element into my group to add it. Now you will notice that it wants to name this Artwork 1. As we add more and more elements, they will all want to be named Artwork 1, Text 1, Color Swatch 1. They will be wanting to use default naming structures, and that is not particularly a helpful way for us to search for and utilize our things. So I'm going to right click on my logo, and I have all of these other options available, and I'm going to come down near the bottom and choose to rename it. I'm going to call this one Logo Full because it has my URL, it has the phone number, it has all the information for this logo. Clicking away, the name has been applied. Now I can click on the next logo and I can drag that into the group. And again, I will want to rename this and continue to move all my logos in. Now, if I were to drag and not drop it into the correct group, it will go into the library, but as you can see, it is going to be in a category not grouped. This does not really create a problem because I can always right click on it and choose to move it to, and then tell it what group in my current library, or I can use the back arrow here to access all of my other libraries. Another way that I can do that easily is to simply click on the object and drag it into the appropriate group. Adding another group, I'm just going to call this one Address Blocks. And you can see we have a text box here. It has text in it, all formatting is applied, and we will just drag and drop that in. And this one follows my print branding guidelines, so I will rename this accordingly. And then I have my web or online version. For the rest of this, I'm going to just do this in high speed, but I'm going to create a group for my lines and my dots next. Once I have finished adding all of my content to my new group, I will go ahead and rename them, but for now I will do that at another time. Now you can see that I also have two swatch colors here that I want to add. These are simply squares that I have filled with my brand standard colors, but they are not actually swatches, so I don't really want to bring a filled shape in there, although this will work and allow us to be able to reuse those colors in future files. But we're going to use swatches. So to do this, I'm going to select my first shape, and I'm going to come to my color picker here in my tools, and I'm going to right click on it, and you can see that I have the ability to add this to my swatch panel or swatches. So I'm going to select the object, right click on the color fill, and choose the Add to Swatches option. And now I want to open my swatch panel. So here again, I'm going to go to Window. In this case, in the newer versions of InDesign, and this is InDesign 2023, I'm going to go to the Color option and locate my swatches from the flyout. As you can see, the keyboard shortcut to get there even more quickly would be to use the F5 key on my keyboard. With the swatch panel open, and I'm going to pull this over and let it free float, you can see we have these swatches right here. When we have a swatch already in place, you will notice in the lower left corner of the swatch panel that you have a button which, if you hover over, will tell you that this is going to allow you to add this to the current CC library. So simply tapping that will add an ungrouped swatch. Now I want to make sure that I deselect my object before I select my other swatch, and I move this to my CC library also. At this point, there's a couple of things you need to be aware of. If I am in the process of creating a swatch by coming to my swatch panel and using my swatch panel options and choosing new color swatch, when the new color swatch window is open, here you can see you can name it with the color value. Simply unchecking this will allow you to give it a name that is a little bit more descriptive. You can see you can use your RGB, or you can switch to your color mode, CMYK, or access your Pantone or any of the other color libraries available. And you can set that color the way that you want. Now, before we simply rush and click Add to add it to the current swatch library for this file, I want you to take note that again in the lower left corner there is a checkbox that allows you to add this to the CC library, and then you would have the drop down where you can choose from any of your existing libraries or even to create a new one on the fly. This option may be checked by default when you start InDesign, so you want to watch out and make this decision. Do you want this swatch to be added to your CC library or not? Because if it's set to add to the CC library and you're not paying attention, before you know it, when you open up your library, you're going to have a whole series of unwanted swatches added in there that you will have to remove. At this point, I am not going to add in another color, so I am going to simply click Cancel. And you can see we now have our two swatches here. And I'm going to create a group called Colors and move those two colors into that color group. It grabbed the last item that I had in my lines and dots and included that, so I'm going to move this back up into my lines and dots group. Sometimes when you have an object actively selected and you create a new group, it assumes that you want to include that object in your new library group. As you saw, it's not a big deal because you simply just drag it out of the new group back into the group where you wanted it in the first place. So now I'm going to take you to a new website where you can access some color tools to help you out that can also be connected to your CC library. Now the URL where you're going to be able to find this resource will be color.adobe.com. And when you come here, you may be prompted with a What's New screen. I've already closed out of that and I am looking at my color wheel. This will allow us to go ahead and look at analogous color schemes, monochromatic color schemes, triadic. As you can see, there are several different color harmony rules available. At the top left, you will see that you are currently looking at the color wheel. You can actually go ahead and choose the extract theme, which will allow you to drag and drop or click the select a file from your computer button. You can load in a copy of the logo, which contains the company colors. This will analyze that image and give you the predominant colors. Now this may be very close, it may not be exact. You can see the image up above. You can move the little circles around to refine your selections. And before you know it, you will end up with a good set of color options. Looking over in the upper right corner, you will notice the little Adobe sign-in logo right there. You can sign in. You will then be able to access your list of available libraries. Choosing the appropriate library, you will then be able to save it. Coming back out of the Extract Theme view of things, we're going to go back to the color wheel. And you can choose a base color by simply locating and clicking on the little triangles that exist in the center of each of these color squares. And then you can choose a different harmony rule. So with my base blue selected here, I am going to go ahead and switch this to a monochromatic color scheme, and you can see that this set comes up. If I'm happy with this, I will simply click Save. I can always come down and modify these RGB values for any specific color block. I can then also consider coming back and changing that hex value or RGB value for my other color that I would like to utilize. So in my case, I'm going to go ahead and use my green. And now I have a set of monochromatic greens that I can also save to my CC library. Jumping back to my InDesign application and looking at my library, you can see we have these color groups now also added. They're going to come in the ungrouped or not grouped category. So I'm going to click on these and drag them into my color category or color group just to help me stay organized. As I go and create new documents in the future, I can always access that CC library. So I'm going to create a new document. And now I can choose any of these elements and simply select them, drag them, and drop them onto my stage or onto my document. You'll notice that they do not appear right away. What you will see is a loaded cursor. And in the case of a text box, if I were to click up here, it will assume that I wish this text box to cover the entire page, which I definitely do not wish. So I will resize my text box accordingly, or according to the size of my text. I could then go ahead and continue to add in my logos, and if necessary I can add in any other elements that I so desire. If I were to draw new shapes and I would like them to use these colors, I'm going to go ahead and just tap on the swatch in question and it will fill it with the appropriate color. All of this is currently being done in Adobe InDesign. Now I'm going to go ahead and open Adobe Illustrator. Now that I am in Adobe Illustrator, I'm going to go ahead and create a new blank document. And I will access my CC libraries. This may be available with the same icon in my panel docs. A page with a little bookmark hanging over it, or I can go to Window and I can look for my library. Now in this application they do not call it CC Libraries, they just refer to it as Libraries. This will open my CC Libraries. It may take a few moments for this to establish the connection, and then I can select the appropriate library and have access to all of that content. At this point, this is really incredibly useful when I am working by myself, but as many of us do, we work with other people. So this resource might be a great thing to share with your colleagues. And to do that, I am going to go to my Libraries panel in any of the applications, and I'm going to locate the options in the upper right corner of that panel. Giving this a click, here you can choose the option to invite people. Your Creative Cloud desktop window should open, and a new window will open to invite people to the given library, and then you can simply enter in their email addresses, and you get to decide whether or not you will allow them to edit, which means that they can add, rename, and remove content from the library, or they can only view the library, which means that they can use this content but not add to or modify it. Once you have chosen a contact or several, you can add in a message and then tap invite, and they will receive notification that you have shared the library. Then they too will be able to access the library and put it to use, and basically just speed up their general workflow and make life a little easier. I hope that you have enjoyed this tutorial today. If you have, please go ahead and subscribe to our channel. We do try to put out new videos on a regular basis with tips and tutorials. You can also find us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and you can also find us on our website, www.tcworkshop.com, where you can look up upcoming classes that are being offered by the Computer Workshop. Until next time, take care for now.